Hey everybody, this is Mike. So today I wanted to talk about the difference between counseling and coaching. So, when a person enters counseling, whether it's a licensed professional counselor, mental health counselor, clinical social worker, psychologist, or psychiatrist, any mental drug and alcohol counselor, um, basically there is a difference between what I'm going to call a clinical diagnosis and everyday issues and challenges, which is not to minimize it. But for example, if a person is depressed, the insurance companies, if they're going to reimburse for insurance, you need to meet the criteria. They have, this is a slightly older version. This is the DSM. They now have the DSM-5 TR, which is like a revision. And this is kind of like the Bible for therapists, right? And every clinical diagnosis has criteria that you have to meet. So for major depression, right, or persistent depression, or OCD, or ADHD, or even like a narcissist, we say things off the cuff. Oh, I'm depressed, right? And there is this kind of everyday depression, or I have some anxiety. But that doesn't mean it's clinical depression, or that doesn't mean you have an anxiety disorder, or people may have narcissistic characteristics but not fully meet the criteria for a narcissistic personality disorder. So technically, you need to have a diagnosable mental illness to qualify for a mental illness. Now, of course, the insurance companies also won't reimburse, because otherwise, what are they reimbursing for? Well, I'm depressed. But does it meet the medical equivalent of a mental health issue, right? There's every day feeling down and depressed, and I'm worried and I'm stressed. Okay, that's life. That's the stuff of life. If it gets to a higher level that really is debilitating, okay, now we're getting to the medical equivalent of a mental health issue. And that's when you want to see a licensed mental health professional, right? But what about a coach? Let's say you said, look, I'm a little stressed, I'm worried about my relationship or my job. I'm not clinically depressed. I'm not, really, life doesn't mean anything. I'm sleeping till noon every day, that's not what's going on. I'm just kind of blah, blah, I'm not myself. Same thing with anxiety. I'm not having a panic attack. I'm not obsessing about. I'm not constantly ruminating. Just a little bit more nervous and kind of high strung than I'd like to be. Okay, if it doesn't meet the criteria for a mental health issue, a diagnosable mental health issue, then a coach might be able to coach you through that. I'm having some anxiety about work, about, I'm kind of a little down about my relationship. Then you might have a relationship coach or a career coach, right? Now, of course, you can see both simultaneously. A person, you can have clinical depression for which you're seeing a mental health professional, and a coach for a relationship coach or a career coach. They're not mutually exclusive, but I would say that that if you are dealing with a clinical issue, and you're seeing a coach, that's fine for seeing the coach for the coaching issue. But an untreated mental health issue is concerning. So I certainly would, most of the time that you're seeing the coach, you'd say, well, are you seeing a therapist, and would you be open to seeing a therapist? Because if you're having untreated ADHD or OCD, that could get in the way of the work that you're working on with the coach, or just get in the way of just life, of your own happiness and joy in general. So I just wanted to distinguish between the two. So there are times where a person might come to me and say, Mike, I'm not feeling myself, I'm not really happy, not as happy as I could be. I'm feeling a little unfulfilled, unsatisfied. And then we'll say, okay, so are you feeling depressed? I'm not sure if I'd call it depression. Okay. And sometimes I'll go through the criteria. Do you have a loss of interest in things, right? Trouble sleeping? Not really. Unhappy more days than not? No, definitely not. Okay, so it's not that. Anxiety, is right. How about anxiety? No, not anxiety. Okay, well, let's go to an adjustment disorder. You have something recent that you kind of responded. Nah, not really. I'm just kind of. So what's the diagnosis then? Like, what are we treating? well, I'm just not my, I just don't feel like I'm a little bored, I'm a little, apathetic, then what are we treating? So we're not treating a diagnosable mental health issue. We're treating the stuff of life, the everyday adversities and challenges that people deal with just by being alive, which is great. That's great. Good that you're talking to someone about it. But I did want to distinguish between the two. So there is a difference between coaching, even for issues, again, that are maybe related to emotion, like feeling kind of down and upset, if it doesn't meet the criteria that you would need a mental health professional for. A lot of the issues that people are having today are these kinds of issues, and that's why counseling is not, you don't necessarily need to see a mental health counselor. If you don't fall into one of these clinical diagnosable categories, you're not going to make it up. I mean, on the one hand, that's a good thing. It's a good thing you don't fall into this. You're not having a mental illness. You don't have a diagnosable condition. That's nothing. That's good. That's a positive. But again, you want to make sure that are you actually having a diagnosable condition? If you are, I would recommend more toward the mental health professional, and if you're not, then seeing a coach. So or seeing both. Okay. So I hope this clarifies to some extent the difference between a coach and a mental health professional, and when they may be, you'd want one or the other, or having both simultaneously, but for different reasons. I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you next time.